Good evening, everyone.
Oh,
Good evening, esteemed speakers and participants, and a warm welcome to the RISE World Summit 2024. On behalf of CDF and our esteemed partners at RISE, I, Shubhra Mishra, extend a warm welcome to the exciting panel discussion on the theme CSR and Sustainable Development Goals, aligning business initiatives for global impact. So, today, as we stand at a critical juncture, the challenges facing our planet and its people demand transformative solutions and businesses. So businesses hold immense power to drive positive changes. So this discussion dives into the heart of that power, exploring how corporations can align their initiatives with the SDGs to create a ripple effect of global impact. Our esteemed panelists represent a diverse voice from academia and industry, bringing a wealth of experience and expertise to the table. So, without further delay, I would now like to introduce our panelists for this session. So, our first speaker for the session is Sapna Narula ma'am. She's a professor and founder dean of SMS, Nalanda University. She's a prominent academician with over 25 years of experience in the field of corporate sustainability. Professor Narula has been a key person behind the development of MBA programs with a sustainability focus. Her contribution in training managers in the various aspects of sustainability measurement and reporting is uh, well known. We are extremely honored to have you, ma'am. Welcome to the panel. Our second panelist for the session is Sakina Baker. She's a CSR professional with over 20 years of national and international work experience in the corporate and non-profit sector. A Commonwealth Professional Fellow and an Aspire Critical Fellow, her focus remains on ensuring sustainable and impactful corporate citizenship that brings in shared value not only for the community but also for the organization she represents. Welcome to the panel, ma'am. Our third speaker is Dr. Amit Tuteja. He is a distinguished leadership trainer, author, TEDx speaker, and the founder of the Connecting Dream Foundation. Mr. Tuteja is an expert for using young power to change the world for the better. With a solid foundation in science, social impact, and business, Dr. Tuteja offers a wide range of abilities to his position. The founder's creative three C's, that is collect, create, and change model, change making reflects his strong dedication to supporting young change makers around the world. He has inspired thousands of young people to develop sustainable solutions that are in line with the Sustainable Development Goals through the CDF. Now we have session moderator Dr. Munir Magre, who is currently serving as the teaching fellow at Nalanda University, where he teaches courses on agriculture development, climate change, poverty, and sustainable development. He has completed his PhD from Deakin University, Australia, in the field of sustainable development. We also have one more speaker for the panel, the Panvita ma'am. I hope she'll be able to join. So, Dipanvita Chakravarti is currently working as the Regional Director of Asia Pacific Cargill, and she has been recognized in the top 20 Sustainable Champions at the Transformance second annual ESG Summit Awards in 2022. She is also the recipient of prestigious awards named Responsible Leaders Award at the India ESG Summit in Raipur. So, without further delay, I would now like to uh, invite Dr. Munir Magre to carry on the uh, session.
Thank you so much, Shubhra, to set the context of this important discussion today. I welcome all of the esteemed panelists here, Professor Sapna Narula, Amit Tuteja, Sakina Baker ma'am, and Dipanvita. We hope that she joins us. We were also supposed to join by Abhishek Ranjan sir, but due to his health conditions, some unseen circumstance, he is not able to join. But thank you so much, Shubhra, and I welcome you all. If while starting the discussion on this important subject, I'll just highlight that we just concluded G20 presidency as India concluded the G20 presidency, and it has been seen that CSR can be the game changer in the decade of action and to achieve the sustainable development goals. Well, chasing the sustainable development goals, achieving them by 2030, the set target. What we need is we need certain collaborations, partnerships, and some novel initiatives into this discourse. For example, we do have policy push from the government. There have been policy push from the government right from the Companies Act in 2013 and onwards. And then the companies are now shifting towards the green growth. They are putting up the policies, and then there is an active participation from the people. If we look into the Connecting Dreams Foundation, they are NGO and they work with in alignment with the people for the CSR and all. So there is a complete synergy which we talk about, and then collaborations, partnerships, and other important aspects. So I'll first go to Dr. Amit Tuteja. When we are talking about collaborations, we are talking about partnerships, we are talking about people's participation. I'll ask Dr. Tuteja that how these collaborations, these programs with the corporate sectors by the NGOs or the developmental sector, how they impact on ground. How what is the role of NGOs? What is the role of people's participation in the CSR discourse, and how we take it forward in achieving specifically these sustainable development goals?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Munir. Before I start answering, I'll just take you back a little bit when CSR was started, something around 2013, and we're celebrating almost 10 years now. And uh, now, when the program started, when the policy on how some of the organizations thought it's more like a forced move, and they have to spend that 2% of the profit somewhere, and they were doing years. There has been a lot of maturity the way CSR has been. We call responsibility corporate, but everyone out there. Okay, instead of saying it's like a CSR for corporate, like a collaborative. And as you said, like, because until and unless the government, until and unless the community, NGOs, and the beneficiaries is being generated through corporates will not be utilized in a proper way. And again, the sustainability angle always comes into the picture. So, changing trend, the way corporates have been spending this year. It's a start. They have them understand the project well, and they also bring in their own expertise. So we always have such good partners where we also have a component where a lot of I'll say people from the corporate also come and join in projects in terms of providing their own expertise, providing their own time, and also enhancing the quality of the project. So I'll say over a period of time, it has matured quite well. I think in future, as we see, I can see there is a more of collaboration or a collective process that is coming to picture where not only corporate responsibility, common responsibility. One from the corporate is coming in, which is contributing to this entire effort. Uh, and when we talk about CSR in 2013 and is defined somewhere around 2015. So they are going hand in hand now. Okay, and many of the corporates now specifically ask for the sustainable development goals that the organization is impacting. So they are at which particular goal that they are working towards. Many of the corporates or the CSRs have their own identified goals they would like to work on. Some of the organizations focus specifically on education, some of them focus on healthcare. So they already mentioned those things. And whenever we submit proposal, we also do mention that which are the goals that we're impacting as primary or secondary goals out there. So I think moving forward, more and more such things are coming. It's for good because it also gives the corporates or the CSR overall overview on where their efforts are going, in which particular direction or which particular SDG. I think I see a very bright future out there. Many more corporates are coming forward and coming out with multiple kind of programs where they are not only just providing the funding, but they're also contributing. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Amit. I'll now, there was a perspective from the people's participation side, from the NGO side. The similar question, if we ask to the corporate houses, I'll go to Sakina, ma'am. Ma'am, how do you see that collaborations with the developmental organizations? Because sometimes we feel that big corporate houses are not having so much of human resources or so much of know how to implement the project on the ground. They do collaborate with the NGOs, with the developmental organizations, they collaborate. Okay. So how do you see it, ma'am, that collaborating with the NGOs or the developmental organizations implementing the CSR, how do you see that it is taking a shape towards achieving those targets by 2030?
Yeah, I think, Dr. Munir, when we look at the partnership which has developed by the corporates after the advent of the law, CSR law, I see, I don't.
I think we have lost her, ma'am.
तो ये प्लेटफॉर्म्स में ऐसा ही होता है, पता है। अभी करो उसको दोबारा कॉल, और she might be speaking also.
Might be, ma'am.
तो करो, कॉल करो.
Ma'am, I'm calling her.
Okay, Shubhra, can you connect with ma'am and check what's the challenge there? Munir, in the meantime, can you go to the next question?
Yes.
Is it
Yeah.
right now?
Ma'am, I'll come to you for this directly. That how these collaborations and these skill development programs between different organizations, if we take an example of educational institutions, the business organizations, NGOs, developmental organizations, how do we need to prepare in context of achieving SDGs? If you can put as an academician, as an esteemed academician, your insights into it.
Thank you, Munir. In fact, if you see SDG goals, all 17 of them, they have a clear-cut direction, they have targets, and they have indicators, right? And CSR, of course, is again, social responsibility. That means we have to work for the social development, but through the corporates, right? Through the corporate funding. Both CSR and SDGs are going in the same direction, but then there are a lot of differences. If SDGs have got various targets and indicators at the regional level, at the national level, country level as well. From my experience of teaching and practicing CSR since last many years, what I have seen is that CSR has matured, but not to the level that that we are able to measure the impacts. And so CSR, for example, they only have financial targets. No firm is setting other targets and indicators, like which regions they are going to work on, what are their priority areas. Only a few goals, right, that they have, that the board level committee sets. But CSR has to be, although we have come a long way, but it has to be more directional. Number one, it has to be more directional, and number two, that we should know what I am doing in this corporate space, and what my other counterparts are doing in the same industry or in the other industry. For example, a Clean Ganga campaign. If 5 different companies are working, but they are not sharing their knowledge with each other, they do not talk to each other, and they might have some learnings on the way, they are not sharing with each other, then I don't consider that the social development, in the cumulative manner will happen. So another point, the second point that I said, that we need to share knowledge with each other. We need to find out what good and what bad have been our experiences, learnings, and how we can share it with each other. Third is the impact assessment. As many of you would know that through our study also we found that many companies are there are certain regions which are untouched, and at the same time there are certain areas which are untouched. So impact assessment is one such measure that we need to speak on about, and I think the efforts have to be more cumulative, per se, where different companies can share their knowledge, their expertise with each other, so more directional, so that we see the impact on the field together. And also one thing I find is that there is no such platform where we can do that. So if there are 17 SDGs, I think there have to be 17 platforms through which different companies across the globe, not only in India, or on a regional basis, they must share their best practices. So technology can actually assist that. Nowadays we have online platforms and tools. So this is where I see a little gap, and that gap has to be filled in terms of numbers. So not merely goals, but the targets which are really specified, objectives which are very specified and time bound, and then impact assessment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, as you rightly mentioned, ma'am, there should be some uniform platforms, technology exchange, knowledge exchange, sharing of ideas, best practices between different corporates, between developing and developed nations. As we see that in India, it is mandatory, and other countries are doing it voluntarily. So there is a need to have, in some countries, there is CSR is a voluntary practice, but they do have some best practices that we need to adopt from them. So I'll again come to Sakina, ma'am, and sorry, ma'am, there was some disruption. I'll ask you about the uneven distribution. As ma'am highlighted, there is an uneven distribution of CSR funds between different states. There are some activities where corporate houses are moving much of their CSR spend. There are some companies that do strategic CSR, some do non-strategic CSR. So I'd like to understand from a corporate house, ma'am, that how do the companies take this into consideration while putting up the distribution of the funds across different states, across different projects and verticals?
Yeah, I think it all stemmed out from the law itself. When the law said, and people actually took every word of the law very seriously, not liberally, understanding what the law said. This law is very flexible. It doesn't tell you have to be rigid about your initiatives or the policy that you draft for your CSR. Initially, it was given to understand that you should be spending your money around the locations where your business operations are. And I think that is the reason why more localized projects were taken, and more projects that were very specific to the need of the localities surrounding the manufacturing units or the plants and office spaces were looked at. It unfortunately led to decline in CSR funding, or at least I would say in many states, especially in Northeast, the no funding went to Northeast for many reasons. For many reasons that they don't have business operations, they don't have lucrative assignments there from a business perspective. So Northeast, or maybe I'll say even Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, or I can say Lakshadweep, some parts of some union territories also, like Pondicherry, Dadar, Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu. Many of them had almost negligible amount of CSR going to their kitty. Majority of the funding obviously went to the bigger industrial states where the majority of your corporates are functioning and they have their establishments there. So, however, I think in the recent few years, corporates, as Amit rightly said, they have matured over the years, that they have started looking at going beyond the boundaries of their business. And the government has also come out with a recent clarification that While we say that you focus on local, that doesn't mean that you cannot explore initiatives in locations which require those solutions and require those services. And I think I can see a shift happening slowly. I'd not say it's great in numbers, but it's happening slowly, but it is happening towards the betterment of those areas where they may not have establishments or corporates or corporations, but they will still need certain social interventions. And I think over the next few years, we will see that shift happening because we in Bosch are doing that. And I'm assuming many corporates that we have spoken to are also thinking of going towards those locations and making sure that at least some part of our funding goes on maybe similar projects to those locations as well.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this insightful information. If we look at the data in 2022, ma'am, in 10 states of India, 44% of the CSR share was going to those 10 states and 0.91% to the northeastern states, considering Jammu and Kashmir also. A very minimum amount, only 1% of the CSR funding was going to these states. So, ma'am, again, if Dipanvita ma'am is joining, if we can, I think she's taking some time. I'll again go to you, ma'am, Sakina ma'am. How can businesses ensure their SDG aligned initiatives reach and empower marginal communities in both local and global contexts? And what are the effective strategies for ensuring inclusivity and equitable outcomes? How do corporates look into this, ma'am?
See, corporates are anyways bound to look at sustainability as a part of their function. Sustainability now, ESG is bound very big. Right now, the concept started very much in Western countries, but it reached late in India, whether it is Sustainable Development Goals, whether it is ESG. While we talk about sustainability, while we talk about ESG in the business processes, at the same time, we look at contextualizing our social investment or social engagement in the as a part of our sustainability initiative or as a part of this ESG framework. So I think the corporates are making an effort, at least the bigger evolved corporates who have maybe global affiliations or who have some learnings from their global affiliations or partners or collaborations. They take it very seriously in terms of not only thinking of business, running a business responsibly, sustainably, ethically, as well as following the compliance and rule of the land. But at the same time, they look at their CSR and community engagement initiatives in the same light. I don't think there's a difference. Earlier, the CSR was going in one direction, the corporate goals were going in the other direction. But now I think CSR has become a part of the discussions at the board level. So I don't think they can negate that whatever they do as a business, as a responsible business, the same has to be done as a responsible business towards the community and society that they work in. So for a lot of initiatives that are somehow or the other related to the business, but at the same time, the angle of SDGs and the connect with the community, impact on the community, or part of the environment that they're working is definitely looked at and it's discussed. We do give a lot of inputs that we work on in the sustainable development space through our CSR initiatives or the development initiatives. We do give those inputs to the business, and business does discuss that with us in terms of what is their agenda when it looks at sustainability or being a part of the ESG framework. Now, in India, I think we are evolving. We are still evolving in trying to look at this, making CSR as a very strategic investment. Earlier, when we started CSR, lot of things were emotion driven. I think because it was, if education, can we do something about education? While strategy didn't work so well, it was mostly filling the first need: education, schools, infrastructure, books, teachers. I think that took precedence. But gradually, they started evolving and looking at the impact rather than looking at the initiative. They started discussing impact first, and the initiative were drawn and solutions were drawn for the impact they wanted to create. So I think there's a shift, and I think corporates are very much conscious in India, not only because it's a compliance, but conscious of the fact that impact is something that has to be the deciding factor. And I think that is how they also pass on the message to their partners, whether non-profit organizations or service delivery partners. They do pass on that message.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You put some insightful information on responsible business, ethical processes conducted by companies, and then it's a boardroom discussion. It's not about now only having a small team in a company, a CSR committee, but it goes to the board. A CSR committee puts together the proposal, it goes to the board for approval, and it's back and forth process. I'll go to Dipanvita ma'am, if you can hear me, ma'am.
Yes, I can hear you. I
Thank
hope
you.
you can hear me. I don't
Yes,
know
ma'am.
if it's available or not.
Ma'am, we
Is my
can hear
video
you.
available?
Okay, ma'am. We can hear you, but we are sorry for the
Okay,
disruption, ma'am.
great. Awesome.
So I'll just try to understand, or rather, we will try to understand. Ma'am talked about impact. Professor Sapna Narula, she also talked about impact. But it has been seen that the CSR projects, while implementing the CSR projects, there is a least documentation about monitoring, evaluation, and impacts of those projects. How do corporate look into it? Because now it has been mandated by the government that you need to do the monitoring, evaluation, and then also calculate the impact of the projects. If you are investing, say, 10 crore rupees in a project, what is the impact? How is it impact output driven project? So how do companies look at it, ma'am?
Thank you. And hi, everybody. Good evening. My apologies once again for joining in late. Um, that's also an evolving question. What is relevant today in terms of data salience as it relates to impact creation, as it relates to how we do resource allocation, how we report it. I think it has evolved majorly over a period of time, and I would also say that it also differs from organization specific goals and where they are in their journey in sustainability, ESG, and corporate responsibility altogether. But overall, I think the need for data driven tracking of impact is something that is underscoring the work that we are doing. What is also happening, and I can speak for the organizations that I work with very often, and also as what we do and how we have been evolving at Cargill, is to also put that onus on our partners who are implementing the program on our behalf, right? So while it is important for them to have their own monitoring, evaluation, and tracking practices that they incorporate into the project proposal to write the start, which has been a practice that has been followed. But it is also important that data, for example, if we are talking about it here, I heard my previous speaker, Sakina, was talking about this. So if there is an education program happening in a school and it has been given a time frame of, let's say, 3 years to change the indicators of skills, learning capabilities, if there is a nutrition element to it, to improve health indicators, etc., is a baseline that gets and then there's all that is great. It's also very well as practitioners in the organization to make sure that what takes care in the stories that we are telling about this good work that all of us take so much of pride in is massive data back. We were not really good at it the at the start and when we began the journey, but now with the regulatory environment working towards it, on organizations to more and in turn it is also putting that sort of onus on organizations who are implementing it on the ground to make sure that the salience of the data that they're reporting back is very critically by organizations. And we are doing we have a lot of data assurance organizations as well, which we tend to partner with nowadays, which was probably not so much the case in the past. I think taking it all together, since ESG is a conversation in the boardroom today, since it is putting that accountability on each organization to show up when we declare our report data science is taken care of. I think it's really critical. And I think it makes all of us, keeps all of us honest and keeps all of us earnest in our efforts. We all have good um, as practitioners, sometimes we cannot be in the field all the time to check each data point. So it's important that it's collective responsibility and collective accountability. But I think these processes that we have with data are a great value driver for making sure that the impact that we report of the work that we do in ESG and sustainability is salient, is earnest and honest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll put this to Dr. Amit Tuteja now. The corporate sectors, they provide financial resources in terms of CSR funding to the NGOs or the developmental organizations on ground. But how could the developmental organizations or the NGOs on ground help the corporate sectors in calculating or evaluating the impact of those projects? Because as Dipanvita was talking about, that the onus should also lie on the implementing agency. As an NGO, you are the implementers. How do you see it?
Okay, thanks, Munir. It's a to answer the biggest challenges. We also face some because every corporate has their own monitoring and evaluation mechanisms, and become our monitoring evaluation agencies as well. And a lot of time and energy goes in making sure your alignment mechanisms and their pool. So again, question, I'll not be able to give a clear answer, but I'll tell you the perspective of NGOs. Even if we see there are a lot of NGOs working on ground from a corporate in terms of number area is very unrealistic based on the kind of work that is being done. So I have to say, because we have a lot of NGOs on ground, this language of monitoring so complex that it's difficult to understand. And some the organization of these conditions. Like if you see there are the number of NGOs in India are huge, but then who are taking benefit of CSR are very. The majority of funding of CSR is going. I can correct more than 20. They can't connect with the on ground. They can't fulfill. So there has to be some process. That's why we always have collective mechanism. There are many corporates. I would appreciate that in those sessions. How do you monitor? How do you that impact? Because the people who are working on ground sometimes do this because they have CSR case now, but the NGOs have been there since so many years. So they've been working with the especially NGOs have been working altogether. Simplifying the process. So at and some people also feel and sometimes immediate impact, the physical impact.
Okay, I thought that we have lost Dr. Amit Tuteja. Ma'am, I'll come to you, ma'am, because I know I have read some of your research papers, and fortunately, I was working under your guidance during that time. The implementation of the CSR projects that you were as a principal investigator, we could see the measurement of the impact conducted by the researcher you were involved in. How do you look at it, ma'am? Because the problem is always in evaluating the impact. But those papers that have been published, your papers, we could see that the impact assessment has been done on ground, and we could see that how CSR has created an impact. Could you, if you could put some light on this, ma'am?
Yeah, so CSR, every CSR project creates impact, a little bit or, sometimes more. But, and I share my experience with you that whatever project we did, we only published a few case studies. What happened to after that? So CSR, so the biggest problem is number one, the problem of funding is for short period of time. We had funding for 3 years, right, from a mining company, and after that it stopped. If there is no funding, I cannot go there to see that whether this impact is sustainable or not. So number one is funding, and second thing is that uh, you know uh, the sustainability of the project itself. For example, if we do it in some villages, or we did most of the work in coal mines, where after we were out, the sustainability of the project sometimes in question. So I think what Dipanvita talked about, that these if the project is continuous, if it is self sustainable, and then how corporates can actually track it, not only corporates but academicians and other stakeholders. So again, based on what Sakina ji said and what Dipanvita said, I would like to highlight that there have to be collaborative platforms even for knowledge exchange and for data driven tracking. As academicians, we go to the field, and when the funding is over, I think we also get away from that field. So that is where the big question is. So this is one thing that I would like to highlight about these in technology. Technology can be very well used nowadays. We have cloud reporting and other things. All these systems, AI can be. I was reading a paper today on how AI can be used for public sector project management. So artificial intelligence can be also used for CSR, and this is the next big thing happening. You will see after 5 years, that lot of AI will be in use for tracking and implementation of CSR projects. This is about impact assessment. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very nicely. As I rightly mentioned, that there have been some research that have been conducted by you regarding the impact evaluation of the CSR projects. There has been a framework also that was developed by one of your research papers regarding how to implement CSR by the coal mining companies. So, ma'am, I'll again come to you. I'll shift the gear towards the educational institutions and then corporate sectors. So, how do educational systems be reimagined to cultivate critical thinking, corporate social responsibilities, and the skills needed to tackle SDG challenges?
Our education system. I mean, where me and Sakina studied, we were not aware about CSR. We never had a formal training on CSR. You guys are lucky. At least Shubhra and many other students I can see as attendees. They are at least studying CSR, and many business schools have made it mandatory. Now, a lot of research is happening in this field. A lot of PhD students are coming out with CSR based projects. So I see it as three big things. First is business, second is education, and third is society. So if you talk about 20 years ago, business was in another direction just to make profits. Society was working in another direction, its own challenges. Businesses had their own challenges, and students were more or less having their own challenges. But I think this is the high time when these three pillars have to join hands. In our school also, there is this Anudeep Foundation. They are doing a lot of CSR, and this CSR is being done by IT companies. And they said that can some students be part of these CSR projects? So in spite of their classes, we just offered them to undertake these live projects, because it's not only that CSR is not taught in classrooms. It can never be taught in classroom. CSR has its own challenges, and Sakina is smiling, so she knows that at the field level, at the partnership level, there are a lot of challenges that we have faced as researchers and or when we were implementing CSR. So see, these students have to be prepared about the society as well. So even as MBA students, I think there must be some sensitiveness about the society or social challenges. I think the global change maker project that we have in CDF is a very good sensitization of students. They go to Delhi University and they educate them about students take up their own projects, and there are a variety of projects. See, innovation happens at the student level, right? So they are young minds, they are more fertile, so they can think, they can pick up a challenge and they can give some. So there has to be more engagement of businesses with the these B schools or educational institutes, keeping society in at the center stage. So when that happens, I'm sure more problems will be solved. For example, these impact assessment projects or data driven tracking, or all these things can be solved. Innovation happens. I see that innovation in the grassroots, at the grassroots level, will happen only when we involve the young minds. And we were not trained. We were mostly aware about economic challenges and later on environmental challenges. I had a formal environmental degree, but about the society, there need to be a sensitization of these young people, and through various quizzes or various essay writing competition or maybe field level competition, live projects, we can create a platform for industry academia interface as well, where faculty and students can join hands in CSR projects. Yeah, so I think there is also a the orientation of these schools is such that they are more interested in placements, they're more interested in jobs. So if they talk Sakina, they will always talk about jobs. So because this is our orientation, right? This is how we survive. So, but I think it has to be more. Not only when the placement season comes, we have to join hands with corporates. It's across the alongside 2 years. We should give one student each to one corporate, and where they can contribute. And there must be some academic credit as well. In fact, in my previous university, we were thinking about that, but due to some UGC hurdles, we could not implement that. So, there has to be some credit based live projects so that these students can work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, ma'am, I'll pick up from you only the sensitization of the students, and I'll go to Sakina, ma'am, as well as to Dipanvita, ma'am. They come from the corporates, and I'll ask Sakina, ma'am, first that how do businesses play a role in supporting and shaping transformative education initiatives? Like ma'am was talking about, that the need is having the interface between the corporate and the educational institutions. How do corporates look into it?
Well, I won't give you a broader example of what the corporate. I'll give you closer to the home because that's what we practice, and I think that's something that has to be that's very much replicable. In Bosch, what we have a certain aspect where we actually have a very strong industry academia collaboration, and that collaboration has resulted in impact on ground for some third party, which is the community. While the industry is ready to invest for the social development, but at the same time we also understand there is a lacunae which is built because we don't connect other collaborators or other participants who have an equal say in it. Here the academia comes into play, and academia, because they have the right knowledge and the resources in terms of the teaching resource that they have or the young minds that they have who can think creatively with their access to technology, their access to social media, their access to creativity. And I think that's a perfect match for us to create certain solutions on the ground. And we have done that. We have done that for skilling. We have done that for education. We have done that for student training systems. Similarly, internally, what we have done is we have also not kept it only for, say, NGOs or corporate CSR or, for that matter, academia. academia. I think that they are the major players when we come to discussion, so we should be talking with each other. However, it's very important to have an inward insight also. So how does that happen? So you have to make sure that your leadership who is running the business is also very much inclined to social engagement. Now, if that social engagement happens, not only are they able to think the business from the perspective of the community where they are operating from, or how they can impact the community through the business that they do, but also at the same time be able to take responsible decisions for the business, and well as have more empathy towards the internal business systems. I think it's very important to take every stakeholder along. Similarly, when we look beyond CSR, we look beyond the business or NGO or academia, we must look at what are the responsibilities of the community that we are working with. It's not that we can always give. There are certain things that they will have to also take the responsibility of for an equitable society or for a much transformed society when it comes to environment or healthcare or education. So for us, it's very important to look at each stakeholder, try to address the problems, but at the same time see what is it they all can bring on board and how we can work together. Because it sometimes is seen that while CSR we are giving to the society, is it something that is being returned to us from the society? And are they equal partners in that change making process? And I've seen wonderful examples of how the society has come back and be an equal participant in that change, which is going to be positive for them and for their children as well. So I think we still, in all CSR frameworks or in all business frameworks, we should definitely have the society as an equal participant or as an equal impact measuring component in place. That's how we will be able to create faster change rather than just being a few stakeholders coming together for select initiatives.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll go to Dipanvita, ma'am, with the similar sort of argument. So, ma'am, we teach in the classrooms about the CSR, and we do have theoretical, experiential, live projects, and ma'am mentioned about it. But what corporates look at the CSR students? What do you want that the CSR students should come up to the corporate houses when they join you? For example, our student Shubhra will join Cargill in coming days, or the Bosch. What do you look into, Shubhra, ma'am? We are running out of the time. I just want to have these concluding remarks from Dipanvita, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you. You ask a very, very pertinent question. You see, first of all, I will go back to what Sapna mentioned, right? A lot of us who are practitioners today did not have a formal academic background on corporate responsibility. We brought our heart into it, we brought our passion into it, and that's how it flowed. It is, and it's still flowing, and it will continue to flow like that for us. And it is really great that now institutions are introducing a very syndicate kind of course material and emphasizing on students to learn and be practitioners with an academic background. I really appreciate that. But I would go back to saying that what happens in theory and in books and in classroom and what is out there in the world is different. It is true of people management. It is true of running a plant operations. One can have an ops degree, but when one has to actually run the machine in a plant, it's a different ball game altogether, right? I don't think corporate responsibility, sustainability is any different. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to have your skin in the game. You have to be sincere about it, and you have to have your heart in it. Most importantly, and I'll also tell you what. See, this when we talk about community engagement, community improvement, through social, creating social impact, environment impact. Everything that is at the center of this is people with emotions, people with who have their stories, people who have their strengths, weaknesses, all of that. And in some cases, when we are dealing with people who come from a slightly more marginalized base or have less opportunities, and therefore we need to bring them up the curve, it becomes a totally different and more pertinent conversation. And I think that's where a practitioner who is responsibility practitioner, a sustainability practitioner, brings that lens into the conversation and also creates that bridge between the management. Like Sakina was saying, it's important that the business stakeholders in the organization are tuned in. So you also play a big role of being that bridge, bringing that outside in, showing the mirror, and saying it's not always about you know making a profit connection to business for how what you will do will bring back. It is actually about giving back, and by giving back, everybody grows, everybody elevates, and everybody grows. So I think it is important to understand those principles. And I'll go back again to say, just take a second to say that it is important to get your hands dirty. It is important to go into the hinterland, see what is actually happening to the life of the people, what are
Okay.
their challenges, speak to them, spend time with them. I think the real knowledge, the real insights come from there. So anybody who's starting off, I would very, very highly encourage to really put their skin in the game. I hope that answers your question, Munir.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, ma'am. Absolutely, I completely agree with you. I hope that I know that each of the esteemed panelists will agree with that. That one needs to go into the hinterland to see what actually the problems are there on the ground. We have been when I was working with ma'am in one of the projects on CSR, we were traveling in the remotest areas of the Jharkhand state. So one needs to go there. Thank you so much to all of the esteemed panelists for joining us. We have covered very important aspects like collaboration, knowledge sharing, exchange of knowledge, and then we have talked about ethical process in the businesses, impact evaluation by the corporates as well as the academicians, on-ground implementers, NGOs, and then different creation, as ma'am mentioned about creation of platforms, knowledge sharing, and all that. I thank you so much. I'll now, without much ado, I will hand over to Anand. He has customary concluding remarks and Thanksgiving. Over to you, Anand. Anand, we cannot hear you. No.
Now I'll thank the panelists. Can allow me.
So on
Yeah.
behalf of Anand and Amit sir, I will
Please, Shubhra.
concluding note. So as we conclude this transformative session on CSR and SDGs, I want to express my deepest gratitude to each speaker who has been an integral part of this enriching dialogue. To our esteemed speakers, your ideas, initiatives, and wealth of expertise have not only illuminated our virtual space, but has also provided invaluable perspectives that will resonate long after the conclusion of this meeting. Thank you, Sakina ma'am, for highlighting that many union territories of India and various states don't get enough CSR for their development. Thank you, Dipanvita ma'am, for highlighting that evaluating and tracking practices and data can improve the impact of CSR initiatives. Thank you, Sapna ma'am, for highlighting issues on sustainability, knowledge exchange, and funding issues, which are common these days under the impact evaluation. Thank you all. And thank you. I would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to the Rise Foundation for providing us with the invaluable platform. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank
Thank you,
you,
ma'am. Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. So